Welcome. In front of me I have the two probably most popular handhelds right now on the market, and I just kind of want to give you my thoughts on both of them and maybe just give you some insight on what might be the best choice for you, as I bought more could be probably I could consider the wrong choice. So probably let's start off with saying what I actually bought, which was the Steam Deck OLED. Now it is literally going back just because it's not the right device for me. So I bought it. It's a limited edition one. I was thinking that it's gonna allow me to play games at basically what could be considered lowest possible settings at a playable frame rate. And you can see right now there is Metro running in the background right here, and at the lowest settings right now it's achieving 50 frames, so that's playable, but that's not the case all the time. And when it drops frames quite hard, up to like 20 frames per second, which at that point that's not a playable experience. So I was hoping to play games on this basically at lowest settings. The resolution here isn't necessarily the greatest, as it is 1280 by 800, I believe. So it's already a relatively low resolution, and you can actually see that on display. It's not as sharp. It's an OLED display, so that's fantastic, but because it's a low resolution OLED display, it's not that great. And probably also another thing that you can see is, even on the camera, you can clearly see this. This looks a bit more fuzzy compared to the ROG Ally display right here. And this is partially to do with the etched display. So this is the reflective display. The one that comes with the Steam Decks that have 1 terabyte of storage from factory, meaning. And it adds a little bit of fuzziness to the display, more than I would like. So the OLED isn't going to be popping with those colors as much as it does on a glossy display. Similar to what we have right here, glossy display, no like etched display, some anti-coating on it, anti-reflective coating, and it's just an LCD display, and to me, this looks more appealing. Now, I will crank up the brightness just so we have a similar comparison. I think I might have overdone it now, so let's lower it down so it's similar kind of brightness. This probably would be very close together. So still, this to me right now looks more appealing on the camera, and the fact that this just seems sharper is to me a bigger benefit over the OLED right here, which might seem kind of weird, but personal preference. I really like OLEDs, but OLEDs that are low resolution aren't that great in this case. So anyway, let's first move this out of the way so I don't get distracted. So I want to talk about the positive about this, and also who might be interested in picking up a Steam Deck in general, and basically 2025, because it's almost the end of the year. This device will be great for people that want to play indie games. It will blast through any indie game fantastically. I've been playing a bunch of them right here. For instance, Risk of Rain, I would consider that an indie game. I've been playing things like Hades, Dead Cells, and some other ones, and those have been playing very good. No problems there. The build quality of this device also really nice. It feels very good in hand. The triggers are fantastic. The something that I personally fell in love with is the symmetrical placement of thumbsticks and the buttons. So typically you have the asymmetrical placement like this, so the stick is lower than the left stick compared to the right one, or right one is lower than the left stick, which to me on a handheld like this, it gets very annoying, because I now, when I'm holding this comfortably, so for instance my fingers are pressing the button right here and so on, my thumb is resting on a thumbstick in a very awkward position. So I need to go out of my way, shift my hand completely differently, lower it probably, so I'm kind of like instead of having a comfortable grip, I'm just kind of like propping it on my fingers just so I can have the correct kind of thumb placement on my stick, which don't like that. So with Steam Deck, this is great. You can hold it the same way on both sides and it just feels great, and the fact that it is symmetrically placed is fantastic. And additionally, you don't need to swap your hand position to reach the buttons now, because they're still at the same kind of arc. So middle, middle, same goes here. No problem. The only time you need to swap your position is for the trackpad right here, which is another positive of these. The trackpads and haptic feedback behind them, so good. It's such a great experience that when Steam Deck finally releases their new controller, I am most certainly going to be picking it up. Because from leaks that apparently came out, if they are to be correct, they're basically making a controller that is Steam Deck without the display. So that is something that I want, hands down. It's some of the best kind of controller that I have used, and if they're making it, hell yeah, I'm gonna pick it up, especially if it has the same kind of haptic feedback like the Steam Deck does. But when it comes down to hardware, it's fantastic. Now, when we move over to the internals, that's where it kind of starts to lack. The processor in here being some proprietary AMD one for Steam Deck only, not the best processor here to drive basically all the games. So it is a little bit lackluster, and it's also showing its age now. This console, Handheld, came out already like several years back. It was, I would say, one of the first ones when it comes down to like the big brand names, outside of things like GPD and whatever. Like, there's other manufacturers that produce handhelds, and they were doing that before Steam Deck. But when Steam Deck came out, other manufacturers, for instance, like Asus, Lenovo, and so on, jumped on board to produce the same kind of devices. So not much has changed between that since this has been released, and it is showing its age. And that is one of the biggest problems right now, that it is due for a refresh. It's already kind of old. Now, this would have been all fine and dandy if the price was correct for this. And even though Steam Deck is technically the cheapest device that you can buy, as it comes at about $650 or so, that also includes tax, it's not like super cheap, let's be honest. For me, where I'm from, that is 3,250 PLN. Now that is a steep price for something that can, well, not run too well most games that I want to play. And that's kind of where my problem came in. Most games that I want to play don't run well. Now, the reason I'm pointing that out is because I can right now pick this up from someone online for roughly the same amount of money. This is faster. This has more RAM. And there is improvements over the Steam Deck in a lot of cases, which makes this, in my opinion, from using both of these devices for past like some time, this is, for me personally, a significantly better choice. Improvement over what Steam Deck offers as hardware. Software-wise, it's running Windows by default, so yuck. I got rid of that trash right away. Screw Windows. I do not want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. So that's why it's running SteamOS through Buzzite. And it runs great. It has some problems, I'm not gonna lie. Things like keyboard on desktop don't really want to work. There is no trackpads. That's a massive L right here. The device doesn't have trackpads. But other than that, it's a fantastic experience. And because it's running a Z1 Extreme processor, it is able to run every game that Steam Deck can't, at least comfortably. Things like Dead Space. I can play at 1080p resolution because this has a higher resolution. So I can run it at high resolution with higher frame rate compared to what Steam Deck can at a lower one. And this basically extends to a lot of the titles. Things like Metro. Metro runs locked to like 60 for the most part at 1080p, no problems. So Metro was one of the ones that I've been playing quite often, and it's a game that I just like to pick up, continue where I left off, and obviously both devices can do it. This just does it significantly better and easier. Now, the reason I'm comparing these two devices, like I said, price-wise, I can get this one for basically the same amount as a Steam Deck. And I know that I'm basically referring or comparing a used, something that I would be getting used to something that I'm getting new. But when it comes down to price difference, or like, well, basically, yeah, price difference here. If I were to buy second-hand Steam Deck, it's not much cheaper either. And additionally, this device came out not too long ago, so even when you're buying it second-hand, you're not buying an old device. You're buying like a couple months old handheld. There was not enough time to just put some massive wear on it. So you're basically buying a device that is still on warranty in a primarily what I would probably consider in great condition. So to me, that's a worth trade-off for a device that is better. Now, I also want to point out something interesting that I have learned while looking at handhelds now. You can get the Ally, the first Ally, also Z1 Extreme, as it is basically the same handheld. This is just improved version over the original one, the white one. And you can swap out the battery, as battery was the weakest portion of that handheld. Now you will see online a bunch of battery mods for this handheld, the first one. As you can see, this one is chunkier. It has an 80 watt-hour battery in here. The original one had half of that, 40. So it lasted you for about like 1 hour and a half while playing games. It's just way too crappy. This has basically the same internals. And the battery here is 80 watts compared to the 40, and you can buy it from Asus, the 80 watt-hour battery. You can cut off some of the back cover once you take that off supports, which basically just kind of make it so, you know, there is some resistance, it don't get pushed down. And once you cut them off, you can fit that 80 watt-hour battery in place of the 40. You get double the storage, so you at that point have ROG Ally X, and furthermore, you can buy second-hand ROG Ally, the white one, for about anywhere between like $300 about, give or take. So $300. This costs MSRP $800. Reality is over $1,000 for me. This costs over $1,000. Now the $1,000, this is a stupid purchase, because you can buy a laptop at that point, have a dedicated GPU at that price, a faster GPU in general, because the device will be getting more power, along with a bigger display and faster CPU. So at $1,000, this is just an idiotic purchase, I would argue. So I would personally, I am most likely gonna go for the white version, the Ally the non-X version that still has the Z1 Extreme processor, and just mod it to have the 80 watt-hour battery. And the only thing I would be losing at that point is the 24 gigabytes of RAM that this device comes. That's one of the upgrades that it has, and I will get 16. Fine with that trade-off for a massively lower price that doesn't approach the realm of, do I want to buy a laptop or do I want to buy a handheld? Because if both of these prices are about the same, why the hell would I go for a handheld that is much more cumbersome to use compared to like a laptop, and designed only to do one thing, while the laptop can do both. It might not be as small and portable, but because it's thin, it can fit way better in like your luggages if you want to basically travel and use it. So that's kind of my approach right here. And finishing this off, both of these devices are fantastic. I do want to point that out. Personally, I really like the feel of Steam Deck. It feels much better than what ROG has. It feels comfortable. It's well designed as a device that you will be using and holding. But I am primarily requiring more power, and that leads me to ROG Ally. And also, I don't like to sell my kidney to be able to buy such a thing, as it is still underpowered gaming console. So I would prefer to spend significantly less and just mod it to basically achieve the same kind of performance like the X does, without the triple price, actually, or like quadruple the price. So that's kind of what I would have been wanting to talk about. And obviously, if you're in the market for a handheld and you want to get one right now, the question that you best ask yourself is, do you want to play indie games? And if you do, Steam Deck will be an amazing experience. If you want to play more of a AAA titles, then you most likely want to go with the ROG Ally. And you have other options, like for instance the MSI Claw. Just don't go for that. Whatever you do, don't buy that one. And you also have the Legion Go, which is also running the Z1 Extreme processor with a bigger display, as it's, I believe, an 8-inch display, if not more. So it's going to be bigger. It has a nice little kickstand, but the battery life on that one sucks as much as it does on the first ROG Ally. So if you want to save money, both of those, the ROG Ally, the first one, the OG one, and the Legion Go, cost about the same amount. So if you want to get a cheap device that has decent amount of power, you can choose whichever one you want. In terms of comfortable usability, Legion might have a little bit better experience, as you can detach the controllers and use them in, for instance, mouse mode or stuff like that. So it gives you a bit more versatility, while the Legion or the ROG will just allow you to play it the same way that you play it on the X or the Steam Deck. But like I mentioned, the benefit is the processor being the Z1 Extreme over the Steam Deck's AMD processor that they have in here. And yeah, that's basically everything that I wanted to talk about. And right, I did say about the indie and the AAA. So depending on which one you want and also how much money you want to spend, you'll have a couple options. So in terms of price-wise, which to me is the most important part, I probably, like I said, if you're looking for something that is cheap, then go for one of those Legion or Asus options, as they will be, like I said, cheaper compared to what Steam Deck or the X1 cost, X1 specifically, as this one is just stupidly overpriced. But another thing that I want to point out is the fact that it's end of the year. We already know that Z1 or Z2 will be coming out, and they have like some, I think, Z2 Extreme and Z2G processors. So both of these, the Asus and Legion, are getting a refresh. Asus hasn't been really leaked anything yet, but obviously there is a processor coming out, so they will most likely make a second version of this with the new processors. And Legion Go, we already know from leaks and pictures that there's going to be Legion 2 and Legion Go 2, or whatever they're going to be naming it, and Legion Go Lite, which is going to be a cheaper version with non-detachable controllers. So with that in mind, you might also want to wait just a couple months more. If you are watching this probably right now, chances are, if you're watching this, I don't know, a couple months in the future, chances are these what I'm mentioning right now already exist on the market. And there are two possibilities. For instance, the Ally X or the OG Ally will be cheaper than what I mentioned, and in that case, they might be a better option. And additionally, if you want something more powerful, you will have the option to go for the newer one, the Z2 Extreme processor handheld, like the Asus ROG Ally 2 or whatever they're gonna name it once it comes out, which, like I said, will be just faster. And if you're gonna be buying new and you have to spend like $800 to $1,000 and you want to spend that, you feel comfortable with that, you might as well wait and buy the better option that is basically on the horizon, rather than dropping on this one, which is kind of dated. And if you consider the Steam Deck, that feels already like an end-of-life device to me, assuming you want to play AAA games. So for this, there's no leaks about new Steam Deck coming out, so I'm not gonna really say anything about waiting for a new one. It would be great if Steam has one on the horizon, but there has been zero leaks about it. So I'm gonna be sticking with the ones that we already kind of had semi-confirmed, as well as the processors for those devices. So yeah, there we go. That's my take on these two devices, and hopefully you found this video helpful, informative, something that I've been kind of on a fence about. Really wanted the Steam Deck, but it just didn't really work out for what I wanted it. So yeah, now if you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.